Hello and welcome to Vocal Intuition Live on Saturday morning. I'm Anne Leatherland and I'm a vocal trainer and personal growth coach. And I'm here this morning to talk about being truly heard. This is part of a series, really, and I've been thinking about it through the last few weeks or so. And this morning I'm going to be considering the idea of listening. So if you're out there and you'd like to join in, then please do pop in and chat. Would be great to know your thoughts as we go along. In case you're wondering, I work with singers, speakers, teachers, presenters, people in business, in fact, anyone who is a professional voice user. So that's people who use their voice as part of their living. Not necessarily their voice for their living. For instance, we know that singers and professional speakers do that, but also the people who tend to maybe fall a bit through the net. If you're using your voice from day to day in your business, then you are also a professional voice user. So listening then, it's something that we take for granted, but there's a real difference between listening and hearing. We can just hear something and it can give us a subliminal message. It might be a danger message. For instance, if you're trying to cross the road, you might hear something coming. But how many of us actually listen to what's going on around us all the time? If you're going for a walk, what do you listen to? Do you listen to what's going on around you? Or do you listen to the voice in the head? The voice in the head is something I'm coming to very shortly, because it's the thing that can trip us up very much with listening fully. So listening is an important thing in our lives as voice users. We use our voices every day. We listen to ourselves on a physical level. We listen to others on a physical level. How well do we truly listen? And how does it serve us? Is it a positive thing? Is it a useful thing? Or is it something that's going to hold us back? Purely on a physical skill level, we need to be able to listen to the physical voice so that we know what it's doing. Now, I don't know if you know this, but your ears really just tell your brain broadly what's going on. Your brain unscrambles all of that and literally makes it up. So listening is very subjective. Each person may hear something slightly different. If you're there, please do log on and say hello. So each person may hear something vaguely different. And that's what we need to keep in mind when we're listening to our own physical voice. The physical voice is very important. We want to make sure that it's right. We want to make sure that we can interact with other people in a way that they can actually, resonate with, so that we communicate fully. How can we then listen actively to our own voice without becoming obsessed with it? Well, first of all, know that what you hear inside your head is not the same thing that people hear on the outside. That's really important. So if you're making judgments about yourself based on that, then they're going to be fairly inaccurate. Now, obviously, we're going to hear certain things and we learn to gauge what it is that we're doing. I think especially if you're trained in voice or if you're a teacher, you'll have a sort of picture of what your voice is like and how it behaves and how it comes across to other people. If you're not, then you may or may not know what your voice is doing. You might not like the sound of your own voice. The danger is to become very results-led. So we listen to ourselves or what we think is how we sound, and then we aim for that outcome. And actually, that outcome that we're aiming for isn't what people hear on the outside. So how can we actually overcome this? Well, first of all, you can record yourself and you can listen actively to what it is you do. And by actively, I mean really listen to the sound. Close your eyes, think about it. What's good in there that you like? What would you like to improve? Be balanced. Do pros and cons. How does the tone of your voice affect you? If you were listening to yourself as if you were another person, what would it tell you? Now, bear in mind as well that recordings are only as good as the equipment that records them. These days, we can get fairly good recordings, but we're still hearing ourselves through an electronic codec, which is the posh name for it. We're still hearing an interpretation. So then it comes down to getting in touch with how we feel. Because acoustics, if you like, can only take us so far. We hear different things in different environments. We can't trust our own ears sometimes. So it comes down to feeling whether we're doing what we want to do. Now, that feeling can be on a number of different levels. It can be feeling in the body, because I was having a very interesting conversation, or noticed an interesting conversation somewhere else on Facebook this week, about how we feel vibrations in our body. If you think of the percussionist Evelyn Glennie, she's a fantastic musician. She's profoundly deaf, and yet she is a musician because she feels that in her body. It's not just relying on that brain, unscrambling those signals from the ears and making that up. She feels it. She's in touch with it. And I think you can develop that skill in terms of your singing or speaking or whatever it happens to be. Do join in the chat, folks. I can see a few people watching. I'd love to know that you're here this morning. Even if you can't stay for the whole session, it would be great to hear from you and what you think about this thing of listening to your own physical voice. How do you listen? When you do listen to your voice, what kind of effect does it have on you? Or do you avoid listening to your own voice as much as possible and just try and go with feel? Do you hate recordings? So this will throw up quite a lot of questions for you. The thing is, if we're really going to communicate, then we really need to get in touch with who we really are. So that's what I might call your second voice, which is your true inner voice. Morning, Janet. Good to see you. Thank you. I think it's an interesting topic, yes. Your true inner voice, who you really are, your best self, your most intuitive self, which allows you a deep level of expression. And it takes into it your values, your integrity, everything that makes you a person on the best level. And we need that to get through. I've said this many times, but we've all heard speakers and singers who might be perfect in terms of technique, but they don't really do anything for us, because in that perfection, we don't get the self, we don't get the person or the full expression. And so this really links to the getting in touch with feeling in the body, in the self, who you really are. And I'm making it sound quite simple. It's not. It takes quite a lot of work to be able to let go enough of the technical side of singing, certainly, of professional speaking, yes, but even on a day-to-day basis, letting go of the technical side so that you can get that through. You might have had times when this happened for you and things really popped, if you like, and you really communicated well with your speaking, your meeting, your phone call, your song, whatever it happens to be. But there will be other times when that doesn't happen and there seems to be a blockage in the way. Janet's saying she missed the start, so maybe I mentioned this. It's a different experience listening to one's voice in the moment and in a recording afterwards. It is absolutely, because in the moment, and I'm coming to this, we also have something else going on. We have this connection to the inner self, hopefully. Of course, that means that we need to have looked at our inner self and know what makes us tick and how we can bring that to whatever we're doing. But there's the little thing, or rather big thing, that gets in the way from day to day, and that's the voice in the head. Now you might think, what on earth do you mean? Are you saying that I'm a bit strange and hearing voices in my head? No, I'm talking about our thoughts. So the one that goes, oh, right, I must get the milk in, and then I've got to go down the road and get the shopping, and you hear that voice in your head. That's fine. That's just tagging along with your day-to-day tasks. But notice that while you're listening to it, you're out of touch with the inner voice, the who I am, the intuitive, the deep level. So that's not going to really get into your physical voice. Let me give you an example. If you're trying to sing and your mind is on something else, then you're not really going to express that song fully, even if you are completely in it in all other ways. If it's programmed into your muscle memory, the skills are all there. If your brain is already thinking about something else and not truly in the song, or if you're a speaker, truly in your speech, truly in your meeting, then you're going to have issues. And this voice in the head can be really quite insidious. Anybody else there, folks? Do pop in and say hi. Let me know what you think. If you're watching the replay, then just put #replay and I can look at your comments later on, because I'd love to know what you think about this. Do we relate to this idea of listening to ourselves on the outside and then not really being very happy with it, so the voice in the head gets in the way? Because that voice in the head that I've just talked about can start with, oh, well, that's not very good. Oh, I don't like the sound of that. Oh, why are you teaching anyway? Are you sure you've got all the skills you need to do this? So-and-so does that much better than you do. Oh, listen to so-and-so speaking. They're much better than you are. Or why don't you listen to that person over there? They're singing that song. I'm only doing this one. It's the voice in the head. How is that serving you? What do you say to yourself on a day-to-day basis? Do you say, well, actually, I'm doing the best with what I've got on the ground now, and that's good enough. I'm learning every day. Do you affirm yourself? Or is that voice in the head just going from one emotion to the next, or going with one emotion to the next, because that's what it does? Think about that. I'll just slow down for a minute because I'm so passionate about this, but just have a think about it. Should you listen to it, that voice in the head? Is it telling you about a real danger? Oh, there's a truck coming, I better not cross the road. Well, yes, then listen to it. Obviously, that's what it's for. But you know, the brain's a funny thing. If we don't have a danger, it will create one. It's always on the lookout for problems. And if you have to stand up and speak or sing or even have a meeting or make an important phone call, whatever it happens to be, the brain will go, oh, possible danger here. And then you'll start going around a loop of thoughts. And that can eventually, cause some anxiety, cause some nerves. And that's not very helpful. It doesn't serve us. Our emotions change from day to day. The voice in the head one day might say, oh, you're no good. Why are you doing this? And then we might give something up. And by the next day, the emotions change to, oh, well, actually, it wasn't that bad. But we're too late. We've given it up. We've thrown in the towel. So I think you can see where I'm going with this. The voice in the head can be useful if it's warning us of a real danger. But if it's just constantly going so that we can't really listen to ourselves, the surroundings, anybody else, or our inner self, which is the most important thing, then it's not helping us. It's not serving us in any way. How can we get out of that then? How can we shut it up? Anybody else have any thoughts on the voice in the head before I just go into this? Do pop in. How do you feel sometimes? What does your voice in the head say? What I try and do, because yes, I get it too from time to time, before coming onto this broadcast, oh, will people come on and listen? Or what if nobody comes and listens to the broadcast? It goes through your head. You have to go, well, actually, I'm not coming from there. I'm coming from here. I'm coming from something of myself that I want to share with other people. So I'm going to acknowledge the voice in the head and say, okay, you're just the voice in the head. I'm going to just be quiet for a few minutes, get some space around that, and then it begins to quieten down. If it's still going, you can get into the body. And this is where vocal technique can really help you. Take some deep breaths and really center. Really let the abdominal wall go. Breathing in deeply and out. And while you're doing that, and while you're feeling the energy and the life in your body, the voice in the head begins to shut up. Try it. Try it. It's really worthwhile. And then we can get in touch with who we really are, what message we want to put across, and how we're going to just let go and let that deep level of expression go into what we're doing. It's a classic case this morning. I think through what I'm going to say to you on these lives. It's not just all off the top of my head. I have a basic outline of where I'm going. But 9 times out of 10, as I begin to speak and people begin to respond, things become a lot more fluid because it moves away from the thought out plan and into what I really want to say on a deep level. And then we can really start to communicate, or at least I feel I do. If you're watching, please drop me a comment afterwards, #replay. Let me know what you're thinking about this. If you want some help at getting in touch with the inner voice and getting rid of the voice in the head so that you can really appreciate your physical voice and get it out there on a better level, then do get in touch. That's what I'm doing. I'm integrating what you might call personal growth coaching with voice work, because to me, the two things go together. I have done training in both, and I want to help people. So if you do need to chat and you want to look at these ideas in more detail, get in touch and let's chat. But I hope you've enjoyed this morning and it's given you a bit of food for thought. If you don't really follow any of it, then pop your questions into the comment box and I can clarify. But I'm hoping it was fairly self-evident and it's just maybe a way that you've not thought about things before. You have a physical voice. You have a true inner voice, yourself. It drives you. But very often we let the voice in the head, if you like your third voice, get in the way. And we need to learn to quieten that and get to know the true inner voice a little bit better so that we can let that go and express with it through the physical voice. Well, that's about it for this morning. If there are no other comments or questions, can't see any here. Thank you for joining me and have a great weekend and hopefully see you next week round about the same time. Bye for now.